some of the features on the amplifiers. Now, I got to be honest, the amplifiers are kind of a dime a dozen anymore in the industry, and we're trying to migrate everyone from the drop amplifier to the entry. That was the whole point to begin with, because everybody makes drop amplifiers, and quite honestly, everybody makes splitters. We make the best splitter out there. Our drop amplifiers are kind of a me too, and the entry device is definitely the highest end unit out there in the market. So the drop amplifiers are kind of a lead on to get someone to the entry. That's kind of the game plan. Nickel-plated brass F ports on these. They're once again a nickel housing, nickel backplate. Zinc housing, zinc backplate, nickel-plated, and then of course the ports are nickel-plated brass. Same seizure mechanisms we talked about with the splitters and the DCs. The LED power indicator, basically a little green light that shows if you have power to the device. I'll show you that in a minute. Remote powering, that means that the very first RF port output also allows power. So you can use a power inserter to provide power to the device, and then that same port can also be used to send RF out. Same sort of QC level over in China. They check every one of these units before they go out. And these are also serialized. Now, these don't have a date stamp. They actually have a serial number, which shows the year and the week of manufacture, as well as the production line and where it was manufactured. If you notice here, this is the way that the ports are installed. There's like a hexagon sort of indent in the housing, and then the port is pressed in. And I've never seen this done, but basically there's no way that port is going to spin. You're in excess of about 120 or 130 inch-pounds before you're going to see any damage start to happen to these. And we point that feature out because a few years back, PCT, who uses an epoxy in their ports, didn't get their epoxy mixture right. So they installed their ports which screw in to the housing with this epoxy, and the epoxy didn't set. So we got flooded with phone calls of customers saying that they'd put a connector on, and when they went to take the connector off, the port came with it and just ruined the installation. So we make it a point to show this feature, that port is never going to unscrew. Same seizure mechanism, we already talked about that. LED power indicator, this is this little light right here. When you put power to the unit, when you plug it into the power supply, that's going to light up bright green. When it loses power, then it's like this. It's just dull. There's nothing showing that there's power to it. I love QC. We'll skip this. Here's the inside of one of the units. It's real nice and clean. Some folks care to see that, some don't. It just depends on who you're talking to, who the customer is. Some folks like to see the insides of them. Others just want to know what the performance is like. This is some data that we don't have to go over this right now, but mean time between failure calculations. This is something that was required by Comcast. And once again, a lot of customers really like to know the ins and the outs of the product. You know, they'll question you on not only performance but reliability, and have you got calculations? You know, have you done your homework, basically? So this is just a snapshot of some of the information that you can show somebody just to kind of impress them and let them know that we've done our homework. And just for the record, too, this predicted mean time between failure, I think 100,000 hours is the minimum for the cable industry, and as you can see, we're almost 13 million, almost 3 million, and over 1 million here, and that's at 60 degrees Celsius. So we far exceed the minimum requirements for the industry. And this, once again, is just kind of overboard testing. HALT testing stands for Highly Accelerated Life Testing. This, once again, was a requirement from Comcast. This had to be done on the amplifiers as well as the entry device. And they basically put it through oh my God, like 50 Gs of force and a vibration table, and temperature swings up to 120 degrees Celsius and minus 70 Celsius. And they really just beat the product up until it fails. And that's kind of impressive because I don't think anybody else provides that kind of information to their customers to give them that reassurance that the product has really been put through the test. And here's that serial number that I was talking about. 09 is the year of manufacture, 06 is the week, A is the production line, and then this was unit 4,158 on that production line, and the C stands for China. Is there any questions on the amplifiers at all? Okay. We'll move on to the entry series. This is a little more interesting. Right now we have our unit that we first came out with, which is the Evo 1 5UP. Basically, it's a 5-port or 5-output device with unity gain in the forward path, and it's a passive return. This device here, let me skip to the next page, basically encompasses everything that you'll see right here. If you go to a standard Comcast installation today, and it's a triple play customer, meaning that they've got voice, video, and data, they will come in and they have to bond first. Then they've got to go to either a two-way split, or in this case, this is a directional coupler. One leg of that is going to feed the voice modem. The other leg will then typically go to an amplifier. Could be a one-way or a four-way. In this case, it's a one-port amplifier. And then it's also feeding a four-way splitter. So this entire installation here has 5 outputs, 1 being passive, 4 active, just like this over here, just like the entry device. This has 20 components. If you add up the bonding block, all the connectors, the jumpers, 20 points of failure essentially that a technician has to touch, or 20 tech touches, versus looking over here at the entry device, we have 8. We've got 7 connectors, and we've got the entry unit itself. You can eliminate the bonding block since the entry is UL listed. It comes into a two-way split. One leg here feeds this blue port, which is the passive voice modem port. And it's really critical to make customers aware that it's completely passive, because they want nothing active in the leg that's going to feed the voice modem. That's their lifeline. So if they offer lifeline like Comcast and some other MSOs do, if a customer has a loss of their voice capability and there's an emergency, they can be held liable for that. So that's why it's critical that they're aware that there are no relays or nothing mechanical or anything active in that leg. The other leg of the two-way split in the entry device runs through a return loss saving feature that I'll cover in a minute, and then goes to an IC, which then provides enough gain to compensate for the loss of the four-way split. So let me go to the next slide here. So once again, going back kind of to the component set, we're eliminating basically 60% of all the components that you're going to see in a typical installation by going to this. What that does is, right up here, 15 minutes of installation time is cut out of this. That was the number that we got from Rogers up in Canada. That was our biggest trial area. We did, I believe, 1,200 entry units that we provided for this trial, and all their technicians had to document every single installation, and they had to document installation time, what they liked about the product, what they didn't like, and overall, with all these installations over, I want to say a 6-month period, possibly even longer, the average was 15 minutes. So if you consider that a technician might have 4 installations in a day, and if he can save 15 minutes at each installation, that's basically another hour for that technician to go out and help troubleshoot or take another call or whatever, but that's huge time savings. Here's another installation scenario. This one here on the, sorry about that. This installation here on the left, I believe this is out of Arizona, somewhere in Arizona, Phoenix, I believe.
Actually, that's a mock-up in front of my house.
That's a mock-up?
Yeah, see the little stands? That's what I use for shows.
See how rumors get started?